I think it's safe to say that Catherine is probably the weirdest game I've ever played. I had originally bought it not long after I finished my first playthrough of Persona 3. I went into the game mostly blind. I only read that it was a choose-your-own adventure mixed with a puzzle game, and that it was made by the same people who make Persona. And needless to say, I was definitely not prepared for what I was about to go through. Hello everyone, and welcome to my review, retrospective, whatever you want to call it, of Catherine. Catherine is also simultaneously the game I've changed my opinion of the most. The only aspect that's remained consistent with me for Catherine was the fun puzzles that were the right amount of challenge, which is why I'm not going to bring up the puzzles outside of what I just said, as I mostly want to focus on the main story and the choose your own adventure part of it, so obviously there'll be major spoilers ahead. The version I will be covering is Catherine Full Body, the most recent version, which came out in 2019. If you liked the video here today, please like and subscribe. I probably won't be making another video on Catherine, but if you like it anyway, it would really mean a lot. So without further ado, let's get into the emotional roller coaster that was the game of Catherine. The main premise of Catherine is pretty intriguing. After discussing with his girlfriend the possibilities of marriage and moving forward, he finds himself in an accidental affair with a girl of the same name. That and Vincent's general indecisiveness causes him to have nightmares where he has to climb a tower, or he'll wind up dead the next morning. Which is of course where the puzzle part of the game comes in, and I think the game did a pretty good job of capitalizing on its premise. The game deals a lot with Vincent's stress as it progresses. As Vincent tries to mend the current situation with the two Catherines, and having to go through nightmares that could kill him due to his infidelity and indecisiveness, the stress really piles onto him. And you can tell not even just by the way that Vincent acts as the game progresses. You see it on his face. To put it bluntly, he looks like crap, which makes sense due to the fact that he's had to deal with all of that, while also basically not sleeping at all the last 8 days. And I think the game did a really good job of showing off Vincent's stress. That stayed consistent regardless of the route I did. Another very strong thing the game did was show a lot of parallels between the two Catherines and the lives that Vincent could be living. As the game explains it, the two Catherines represent very different things. The girlfriend, Catherine with a K, represents a life of security, whereas the other woman, Catherine with a C, represents a life of freedom and chaos, which is where the other half of Catherine's gameplay factors in. Throughout the entire game, you'll be asked questions either by a certain character or in a confessional booth that will affect where Vincent falls on the morality meter. The morality meter is like a scale of Vincent's actions. Every response you make can either make it go to the left, which falls in line with the freedom ideal, or to the right, which falls in line with the order ideal. Where you lie on the morality meter at the end of the game factors into what ending you'll get. The other factor being your responses in the confessional booth on the final day. And there are a lot of endings. In Catherine Full Body, there are 13, with 6 of them being considered true endings. Not only does the morality meter affect the ending, but it also affects what Vincent's thinking when it comes to certain events in the game. This was really amazing on my first playthrough. It felt like every decision I made for Vincent was a very important one that could affect the story. For example, if you did not choose enough dialogue options that would move the ticker to the right in the morality meter, you won't be able to get the best possible ending for that particular path. Or by leading in one of the directions on the morality meter during a certain point of the story, Vincent would react in a different way. And I think that's really cool. And since the game is relatively short, and that added a lot of replay value for me, as I wanted to see how Vincent reacted to the same situation if he was on the other side of the morality meter. I do have more to say in this topic, but I'll wait till a little later as it becomes more relevant. But now let's talk about the actual storyline. Unlike my videos on Persona, I'm not going to go full in depth on every little thing about the story, but I will bring up some stuff I like about it, and my thoughts on it overall. Catherine's story does a really good job of building tension as the story goes along, as Vincent tries to patch together all the mistakes he has made, while trying to survive nightmares literally trying to kill him. Both of the Catherines gradually become more suspicious of Vincent and believe he's hiding something. Catherine with a K acts very worried, where Catherine with a C acts more deranged. All of this eventually culminating with the confrontation at Vincent's apartment. Catherine with the K is obviously mad at Vincent for cheating on her while she was pregnant, even though it will be eventually revealed that he never cheated on her and she wasn't pregnant, but that's not really important right now. Catherine with a C, who basically appeared out of nowhere in the scene, is taunting the other Catherine throughout the entire scene, making her even more angry and creating even more tension. Vincent, on the other hand, acts like a complete blubbering wreck because he doesn't know what to say because somehow he didn't realize this was going to happen. Although the points I'm bringing up sound like negative things, I don't really think they are. The whole situation hallucination is eventually revealed to be a figment of the nightmare meant to freak Vincent out. So although it's technically a scene that never happened, it felt like the game was building up to this big confrontation. The whole scene is 7 minutes long, and you don't realize it's part of the dream until the final minute, so it feels real even up to the point where the two Catherines get in a scuffle and Catherine with a C is stabbed. And the scene also leads well into the finale of the game. The finale of Catherine is where most of the fantastical elements about this game come into play. There are two big reveals before the final boss of the game: who the mastermind behind Vincent's nightmares was, and what was the truth behind Catherine with a C and her disappearance, which happens on the 8th day, where any proof of her existing disappears off Vincent's phone. Catherine with a C is revealed to be a demon summoned by the mastermind of the game to destroy Vincent. Vincent was also not the only one she was doing that to. Her being a demon allows her to shapeshift into any form she wants, which is why the dentist threatened Vincent, even if Catherine with a C looks different for Vincent and the dentist. Catherine with a C being a demon was a pretty good twist. The game definitely lets you know that there's something weird with her, due to her acting crazy the entire time and basically being able to appear wherever Vincent is. And it also explains how she can be real, but also not be seen by anyone outside of Vincent and the mastermind. Speaking of the mastermind, I think I was a little disappointed with the reveal on who it was all along. During the nightmares, a voice that guides Vincent tells him that the one that caused him to go into the nightmares was someone he interacted with on a daily basis, leading me to believe that it was someone he's close to. The game technically does deliver on his promise, but in an imperfect way that kinda left a sour taste in my mouth. The one that put Vincent into nightmares is revealed to be Boss the bartender. In the game, you technically do interact with him every single day, but a lot of your interactions with him are optional. Boss is definitely not as an integral character to the story as the friends or the main three are. The game does try to address this with a line from Vincent, but it's basically just shoved away as, well, technically you do interact with him every day. This isn't really an integral part of the story, so I'll give it a pass, but it could have been so much better if the real culprit was someone else. I think the real culprit should have been Toby, and I have 3 major reasons for this. 1, he doesn't really do anything in the story. Out of all of Vincent's main friends, he has the least amount of impact on the story. 2, he has more interactions and is closer to Vincent in general. And 3, he's the only one of the main group of friends that never gets in nightmares. In the game, this is explained by young innocence or whatever that means. I think if it were Toby, it would definitely make the big reveal a lot better, and to make the big culprit reveal more important than it was otherwise. After being the bartender, the game splits into one of 13 possible endings. Depending on your choices, they can be good or bad, but I want to focus on 2 endings in this part of the video. The true ending on the order path and the true ending on the freedom path. Starting with the true ending for the order path is the first one I got and is probably my favorite ending in the game. Compared to the freedom route or the neutral route or the Rin route, it's definitely the most grounded these endings get, as it simply ends on the marriage between Vincent and Catherine with a K. The freedom true ending is the exact opposite. This scene is played a lot more for laughs comparatively, and weirdly enough has Vincent move down to the underworld with his demon girlfriend, and eventually have him overthrow her father, who is literally the lord of the underworld. Saying it out loud, it sounds insane, but weirdly enough this isn't as weird as the game gets. But I'll talk more about that when the time arrives. As weird as this ending is, I kinda like it. It is pretty weird, but it contrasts nicely with the more grounded order ending, and fits in nicely with Catherine with a C's weirder character. These 2 endings best illustrate Vincent's character growth, as through the nightmares he finds out what he wants in life, and the 2 endings best reflect that, both with the overall tone of the ending and the overall conclusion. And that was a part of Catherine I was really happy with while playing. On my first playthrough I ended up getting the order true ending, and then I went back to play the game to get the freedom true ending. If I would have ended my time with the game of Catherine there, it might have even been one of my favorite games of all time. With a solid set of characters, a pretty interesting story, and fun puzzles, my experience with the game was great at the time. So of course, I wanted to play the game again to get some of the other endings. I played the game 2 more times and got 4 endings, with 3 of the endings coming on my 4th playthrough by saves coming at the end. Did the last 2 endings increase my enjoyment of the game, make me appreciate the world and characters even more, or did it hinder it and make me wish that some additions weren't even in the game to begin with? Well, at the beginning of the video, I mentioned I played the full body release of Catherine. The reason I mentioned this is because Catherine Full Body adds in a new main character and a new story path. Up to this point, I've neglected to say anything about my thoughts on that character, and that's for a very good reason, and that's because I really did not like it. Let's start with a new character. A new Catherine, nicknamed Rin. Rin's character really isn't interesting in the slightest. If you played through the Rin route, you might be asking why, due to story stuff, but personality-wise, Rin really doesn't have one. I wouldn't go so far to call Rin a blank slate, but I'm struggling to find things to say about Rin that's either positive or negative. I'd say Rin is pretty much a nothing character. I can't really think of any character flaws whatsoever, which would be fine if the character in question didn't have much bearing on the story, but Rin has a massive effect on the story. Rin is literally named Catherine alongside the other two. I would elaborate on this further, but I really can't. Let's move on from that though, and talk about the route itself. You can gain the option to access it by answering the special confessional questions that are entitled For a New Possibility every time they show up. Doing so will unlock a new event on the 6th day, where you learn a twist about Rin. Before this, the voice of Astaroth, the man who is guiding Vincent through the nightmares, hints to Vincent that Rin is more than what meets the eye. So, the game needs a plot twist to have an "oh my gosh, that was so unexpected" kind of moment. And the big reveal on the 6th day is that Rin is not a girl, but was secretly a boy the entire time. And I'm not gonna lie, I did not see this twist coming. It was a very surprising twist that was hinted at before the reveal, but it was very subtle. And if that were the only plot twist in this route, I wouldn't have a huge issue with it, and my opinion on it probably would be higher. But with that last point, me complimenting the Rin route will end now. After this, you're given a choice of whether you want to go down the regular route of the game, or go to the special Rin route, which if chosen leads Vincent to decide to break it off with both Catherines in order to go after Rin. In the nightmare that night, Vincent will tell Astaroth that that part about Rin doesn't matter to him, and that hint about Rin hiding something that Astaroth told him wasn't that big of a deal. That line might have been intended to give character development for Vincent, but with that line, I feel like the writers wrote themselves into a corner. They wanted a crazy plot twist to go along with the themes of the route, but they also wanted that plot twist not to matter for Vincent. But since the main character isn't really affected by the plot twist, I'm sure they figured they had to give another plot twist to make up for it. So they write Astaroth to tell Vincent that that wasn't the plot twist he was talking about, and that there's still one he doesn't know about. It's almost as if he's a magician that after he's done doing his trick, people aren't impressed, so he just tells them, "Oh, don't worry guys, this isn't the end of the trick," and he makes something up out of his head. They did do a similar thing in the main route with the reveal of Boss, but I didn't really feel like that was as extreme as this. So the writers added another plot twist. So you see, Rin isn't even human. Rin is secretly an angel from heaven, and as weird as this plot twist is, it does make sense. There are demons and angels in the universe of Catherine, and Rin having an almost too perfect personality, it makes sense for him to be an angel. It still is a lesser plot twist compared to the first one, but it does make sense. They could have perfectly ended it here, and there wouldn't have been anyone saying this was too light of a twist. But then they add another one. After surviving the final day of nightmares, Vincent discovers that Rin wasn't an angel the entire time. That second twist basically didn't even matter. They reveal that Rin is actually an alien from outer space. This sounds like something I'd bring up in a conversation if I didn't feel like the person I was talking to was listening. Nope. This is actually in the game. The game acts like the angels you thought you were talking to were actually aliens the entire time, even though you interact with gods and demons throughout the entire experience. And what's worse is that they didn't even need to have this plot twist. The game already had 2 plot twists about the same character, so I guess why not throw in a third? I haven't even mentioned how freaking annoying the pink alien things are, but I'll talk about that more in a minute. The ending of this route isn't any better. This is probably the most extreme the endings get in terms of fantasticalism. Vincent decides to be a producer on a Rin piano show. Vincent talking to some pink aliens suddenly made the entire alien race decide to start intermingling with humans, and the game makes it abundantly clear that Vincent and his friends are now living in space. Sure, the game did technically take place on a space colony the entire time, but it was a really obscure detail that you had to look pretty hard to find. And I'll be fair here, I'm not a fan of that either. But this ending goes from 0 to 100, and the tone of this ending is just completely different than the rest of the game. Although you can argue it fits well with Rin's character, but if the whole being an alien thing was so important for the character, just have Rin and Vincent move to space or something, I don't know. With the Catherine with a C ending, I feel that it just makes a lot more sense. Vincent moving down to the underworld, a plane completely different than reality, is a lot different than a bunch of aliens talking to humans, which is supposed to take place in reality. And I think the larger problem with this ending, and the route in general, is the tonal difference between this and the rest of the game. It went from a mostly serious game with a few silly moments, to just pure silliness. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm gonna play 2 clips, one from the main route, and the other one being from the Rin storyline, just to compare. Starting off with the main storyline.
I never thought it would end up this way.
This is for your sake as well. You know the difference between right and wrong, right? I'll kill you.
Okay. Oh, what?
Compared to this.
Little angel?
It's too sad to see our little angel leave us. You really could have been so
Do you see what I mean? There are probably some people that really like the Rin route, and if you did, that's perfectly fine. I personally did not like it though, because I loved the more serious tone of the rest of the game a lot more, and to have that completely thrown out the window, to have a bunch of little pink aliens cry as obnoxiously as they possibly can, yeah, I want Teddy back. As I said at the beginning, Catherine is a game I've changed my opinion of the most out of any game I've played. I wanted this video to be pretty focused, so I didn't get the chance to mention everything I have to say about this game. So I'll say it quickly here. On repeat playthroughs, the morality meter isn't as cool, as even though Vincent might think differently about a certain action, he doesn't actually do anything different and responds in the exact same way, which is a little disappointing. Secondly, I didn't get to talk about every single ending I got, but the ones I did not talk about I did like, although significantly less than the first 2 endings I got. Fire Emblem Engage is a game I reviewed a few months back that I was similarly mixed on, but I definitely would not compare the two. Catherine is a game I enjoyed a lot. Even though the stuff I did not like really infuriated me, the stuff I did were really amazing. Fire Emblem Engage was definitely not at that level. I would not call Catherine one of my favorite games, but parts of it were, and I think that really sums up the game in general. Game of Catherine is an emotional roller coaster, but I think it's a good one despite that. I hope you enjoyed this review of Catherine. I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.